Time and time again, I find myself observing trivial current events wherein people will scream and shout at each other in an attempt to make their voice heard above all others. Meanwhile, I just sit back, scratch my head, and ponder just how we arrived at this destination. Why are people screaming at each other over such non-important issues? Why do people have so many issues with things? It's all down to education. Education throughout the world is lacking in many areas. I am not just talking about higher education such as college or university. In fact, I am more referencing the education at lower levels. The education our young people are receiving from their parents before they even begin schooling right up until they graduate university is simply mind-boggling, and not in a good way. Almost every issue we face today could be resolved via education. Just think about it for a second. What is the foundation of everything we know? Education. We as people act the way we do and believe the things that we believe, all based on past experiences and things that we have been taught. This is becoming more and more of a problem as our society progresses, and this can be observed especially in regards to technology and the online world in general. Today's teachers just do not understand the internet the way they need to. If you have ever been in a classroom with a teacher or even with the police speaking about internet safety, you will know that the whole thing is simply laughable. They will tell you never to speak to a stranger, never to meet anyone you come across online, tell a grown-up if someone is mean to you, etc. These are ridiculous concepts that simply do not work out well in reality. Why would most people even bother to use the internet if they weren't going to communicate with strangers? Communicating with strangers is one of the main benefits of the internet, and tell children that speaking to people they don't know is wrong simply hurts the child more than it does help them. The problem is that the people telling children these things simply do not know any better. These people are stuck learning about the online world from delusional people who are still reading over their internet safety guide from 1988. Instead of telling children not to communicate with strangers, we should instead be teaching them how to communicate with strangers. And that brings me into the area of alcohol and drugs. I am by no means advocating for children, or people of any age for that matter, to drink alcohol or to use drugs. Instead, what I'm merely suggesting is that we should educate people on these subjects rather than simply demonizing them. Instead of telling children not to drink alcohol, we should be slowly introducing them to alcohol. Let your 14-year-old son have a glass of wine with his dinner once in a while. Let your 15-year-old daughter have a beer at New Year's. Introduce them to alcohol slowly. Introduce it in a safe, controlled environment. Because if you don't, I guarantee you that it won't be long before your child is out drinking on street corners with their friends from school. Either that, or as soon as they turn old enough to legally drink, they will get dangerously drunk, and that could result in them doing something very stupid. As far as drugs go, we should not be telling people that all drugs are bad, but rather we should be teaching people what different drugs there are and what both the positive and negative effects of each drug are. Do not present drugs in a positive light, but do not present them in a negative light either. Keep everything neutral. I think it is very important to keep all education very neutral. We should never be telling children that something is good or bad, but rather we should present a situation to a child and allow them to make up their own mind about whether it is good or bad. Education badly needs to be reformed. Schooling today simply does not reflect the world we live in. We need to stop making children focus on equations and the speed of light, and instead we need to focus our attention more on teaching them about valuable life skills and things they actually care about. We need to ask children what they want to learn about. Ask them what they care about. Force-feeding English literature to children is not a productive use of resources by any means. If a young person is aiming to be an English professor, then we should allow them to study the correct subjects that will allow them to reach their goal, but by no means should they be required to learn such things. Of course, there is still a base level of certain subjects that all young people should be taught. We should still certainly teach everyone basic math, English and computing skills, but in general we should be allowing our young people to forge their own education paths. Look at the world today. Look at hatred. Look at wars. Everything could be fixed through education. If we were to teach children truths about race, sexuality and religion, then no one would hate people based on these things. The reason people are racist, the reason people are homophobic, is because they are taught to be those things. Whether it is their parents or their friends, children's minds are like sponges, and they are ready to soak up everything that they are told. So when a child's parents are screaming at their television because they can't stand that a black man is the president of the United States, that child is going to soak up that experience. That child is going to develop an underlying hatred for whomever it is their parents are rambling on about. Now, of course, I've only covered a small amount of the various subjects that we need to be making our young people aware of, but I think that the same logical rules can be applied to all areas of learning. Number 1, only teach facts. Number 2, supply evidence to support everything you teach. Number 3, provide all sides of every argument and do so in an equal manner. 4, never say that something is morally right or morally wrong. Allow people to decide that for themselves. And finally, number 5, listen to people and answer their questions. If everyone were to follow these 5 simple rules, I think we could solve most of the world's problems fairly quickly. You're welcome, society.